All right, so in drawing 2, we take our faces one step forward, and now you're going to do self-portrait, but with a twist. So let's review a little bit. Remember, in drawing 1, we do a half face, and as you're working with your half face, your goal is to match up light and shadow and create a 3D effect. This one is pretty effective, especially right here, nose and mouth area. The nose, paying attention to all the little details of highlight and shadow as we go. Okay, so you notice that there's not much white of the paper because skin tone is not white of the paper. There's some highlight here, a little bit of reflection here and there, okay? But in terms of actual, like the skin tone of the face, that's a good example. So your face, when you do your self-portrait, you should be shading for highlight and shadow, okay? So let's look at a couple examples, some of what to do and what not to do. All right, so we said that your creative self-portrait, your face and your features, eyebrow, eyes, nose, mouth, they need to be looking like you, in the right place, in the right proportions, and then fully shaded 100% of light and shadow. So then after that, you can create yourself into anything else. So this person made themselves into kind of like a sun or a flower. When you look at this, you know, she's paying attention to the shape of her eyes, eyebrow, nose, mouth, but it's slightly turned and tilted. For this project to look straight ahead, it's going to be a little bit easier. Feel free to like smile or, you know, make a face, that's fine. Or you can just have your mouth like normal. But this one did not go enough with the shading because all of this is the white of the paper, right? The only part that's shaded is right in here, and the rest is really not shaded, okay? Even the lips are really an outline. This is just kind of an outline. So you need to go a little bit farther. It should be like this amount of shading, okay? So go much farther. This is a good example, though, of the creative idea on it. Okay, same thing. This example, very creative. So a couple things. Do the features actually look like him? No, because of the creative component, he made himself kind of into, you know, cyborg or, you know, something else underneath. But the eyes aren't shaded. You know, this person did not have white irises. The nose is mostly outline, and there's no mouth, okay? You could do something like this, but, you know, over here on the side where, you know, your skin is crumbling out, you know, that's fine, but this part has to be like you and be 100% shaded, okay? So this is an example of two things. You know how I said if you don't want to do anything creative and you want to just draw yourself and shade it, then you're more than welcome to. So this person actually did it, and then the person next to him kind of egged him on into making himself into a butterfly head. So, you know, it's a little bit of both. So this is a good example, you know, with ears, right? But this is a good example of how if you want to just make yourself look like yourself, go for it. This one is like pretty decent job of shading. It's still a little bit light, but there's really no white of the paper. Okay, all this is like a little bit of shading. Probably a little bit more shading going on here is needed. Okay, but this is pretty close to you know, how much shading you should have. There's no white of the paper. Everything's at least partially shaded. There's a little bit more, it doesn't have any of the darker values, so there's probably a step farther in a darker value, probably in here and here, probably a little bit here and a little bit here, along the edges. So maybe one step more of shading, but this is a pretty good example of how to actually shade your features for depth. All right, got a couple that are upside down here. Okay, so this example, okay. All right, they paid attention to their eye shape and the nose and the mouth, okay? But once again, kind of hearing a common theme, more shading is needed. There's not shading in here. There's a lot of the white of the paper. They're relying on outline for the nose instead of shading here, okay? And same with the mouth, okay? In terms of creative part, they made themselves into kind of like a Pirates of Caribbean character, you know, where there's like their part underwater creature, and that's okay because I can still see all the features, and then they added on these parts kind of off to the side. So in terms of creative element, that totally fits it, okay? Okay, this person kind of ran out of ideas, made themselves into an apple, which is fine, okay? Totally fine for creative element. They're shading around the nose, shading around the mouth. A little bit more probably needed in terms of the structure. And in terms of the eye, like, you know, the ratio of how much of the iris to the white part and where the lid is, just needs a little bit more attention to it. So it needs a little bit, like, kind of next step. You can see right here it's shaded, and here it's shaded, and it's kind of losing steam as we kind of go towards the bottom. All right. So turn yourself into a superhero if you want to, but what's missing? Shading, once again. This is a lot of the white of the paper. It looks like a line drawing. There's really not a lot of obvious shading going on. So we definitely need to add in some shading, okay? So take something like this, in terms of paying attention, you know, make sure your tear duct actually kind of comes to the corner, make sure you're not making your iris too big, but skin tone, okay? Don't be afraid to, like, make, you know, shadows and value on your face. All right, so eyes, nose, mouth, eyebrows in the right placement, in the right proportion of each other. It looks like you're trying to make your eye, your nose, your mouth shape. Shade it, no white of the paper. It should at least be a light shade. And then whatever the creative element you want to do with it is up to you. Okay? All right, that's it.